for many, many animals, right? So it's really tasty for goats, actually with the sticks and the stems. And what we're talking about here is having different varieties of pellets where we could have like a green pellet, which is really good for the leaf, but might be a cost. But actually the animals, the reason why they really like it is because of the sticks and the stems, because it's sweet. They really like the sticks and the stems better. Okay, good. Or I'm wondering if this is better. So we purchased this beautiful pellet machine together as a team, as a collective. We've been raising capital over the last couple months. So far this year, we've raised over $60,000 from our members. And what I did was purchase this pellet machine. And I actually bought this extender because it came without any connection. So I went to Home Depot and got this extender. And there's also like a 20-foot or even a 50-foot extender. So for right now, I just have this one, 6-foot one. The middle one is the ground that goes into the ground, and then there's a positive and a negative. And so these were color coded, and I just actually bought a like a black tube. It's a hard black tube, and then I cut it, and then before I put them together, that black tube I slipped over the wire, and then after I connected them, I put that black tube over, and then I heat gunned that tube so that way it tightened up, and it formed an electrical bond between those two wires, just to keep it safe, so that way they're not loose or frayed or anything like that, because that's a 220, you know. So I actually went in there and unplugged it and got a little bit of a shock earlier today. That explains a lot. So I'm really happy with this machine. I've been able to make my first round about 50 or so pounds. Only took me a couple hours. We took our USDA certified organic powder that we grow in Nicaragua on one of our member locations. They have 1,000 acres and they do a really good job. I've seen pictures and the workers, and actually the member that owns the property is literally hiring an entire village, you know. So by buying from this particular farm, because every day, and you guys might experience this eventually, you'll be inundated with hundreds of international suppliers and growers, right? They want you to buy their stuff. But what we're doing here is saying to them very sweetly, thanks for the offer, but I grow it myself. I don't need to buy it in. And that's kind of been my thing of what I say is I don't really buy in, I grow it myself. Thanks for the offer. But in this case, what I'm trying to do is at least establish this industry with high quality imported powder that's a little bit cheaper in price, because the labor cost in other countries is a little bit less expensive, right? Their cost of labor for the day may be a couple of dollars, but our cost of labor here is hundreds of dollars. That's really the biggest difference. The quality of this farm, the way that I like what they're doing is because it's still coming out green and it's still very much grown organically. It's USDA certified organic, and it's from a member that I trust. I've been working with him for about 3-4 years now, and he owns 400 of those 1,000 acres. So it's a team of farmers that own that together. So he's one of it, and he lives in Miami, and he brings it and imports it in, and then I go pick it up, or he'll ship it here, or he'll come and drop it off, or I'll go visit him. And so we hang out, you know, a couple of times out of the year to get the powder. And then I took the green powder and added water. And so I figured out a really good mix to make kind of like a clay, to make almost like a dough. It's a very, it's like when you grab it, it falls apart. But if you grab it and squish it, it'll hold together because it has a little bit of water in it. And there's no other ingredients other than moringa powder and a little bit of water. Plug this thing in. There's these little things inside here that turn, right, to grind it, but then there's a disc with holes in it. So that grinder is then pushing that powder down through those little holes. And then there's a little thing that cuts it underneath, right? And so they come out really well done, but they're wet. It's like dough. So then it goes into the dry room for another 24 hours. We good? Is that light red? Awesome. And this is recording too, and the sound is on. Great. And so right now we have one size of a pound, and then we have another size of a half pound. And in the book here, what I've noticed is that all the things that are on the label that should be on the label is right in the book. So when you go to the animal feed store and you're picking out your animal feed, it's going to say things like how much protein is in it. Well, it's just moringa powder. And so here it says 25 grams of powder is 42%. I mean, it's massive. If I look at that thing, I think it was like not even 20%. You have it, right? Calcium, 125%. Now this is for a child, right? And so we would have to even go in. I mean, we're going in, it's like, you know, everybody has seen the chart that's, okay, let's see fat. Fat is an important one. This might not have a lot of fat. That's the one thing that I don't think it has a lot of is fats and carbs. But that's what the omegas, yes.
That's what they're counting.
So 92 nutrients, 46 antioxidants, 36 anti-inflammatories, 18 of the essential, and or so I should say 9 of the essential, 9 of the non-essential. So what is the difference between essential and non-essential? Essential is what you need to eat. The non-essential is what your body can make chemically. So essentially you need to get it. Non-essential, your body's already making it from the chemicals and things that are in your body. So we're able to make something new from what's already in there. Oh, here, we've got the fiber, 2 grams. I don't see much fat. But that's where...
There's 33 ingredients in this food that you're feeding your animal, wondering if your animal's going to eat it. This is one.
And this is just the store. We went to the store, right? And we went to the animal store, the feed store. And we're going to get these products on the shelf. But it's like, that's what is, say, like their 100%, right? So they're thinking that they're getting 100% of their maybe nutrient, or maybe these people know that they still need a supplement, right? But what I'm trying to figure out and talk about this in a way is you've got 100%, and the cost of that might be, say, $100,000, right? But you could bring that down to, say, maybe $90,000 or $80,000 and replace that with about $20,000 or 5% worth of moringa powder, and you're not having to buy any other supplements, and you're also saving on the back end from diseases, illnesses, and anything that comes from malnutrition, anemia.
And that is way more absorbable protein when it's a plant protein versus
the processed animal fats and stuff like that that are sometimes not even absorbing into the body. Good point. And so we're going to be working on being able to talk about this better. This is the first time that we're starting to talk about this, and we're going to get for us to be able to sell this to farmers. I actually had a lady call me. It was really interesting. She's in I think Ohio, and she used to make horse treats. And she's really interested in getting into this business because she knows lots of horse people and estuaries. Is that what they're called? Estuary? Aquarians. Equestrians. Third time's a charm. So the equestrian community there in Ohio is pretty massive. And she's like, I have a huge opportunity. Ocala is the capital. Ocala, Florida has more cattle and horses than any other state, believe it or not. Florida is actually even more cattle than even Texas. Florida was actually the first place to bring in those cows, and the first farms with cows in the whole country were in Florida.
So you say not a lot of hat, but a lot of cattle.
A lot. And that's the industry that we're really trying to break into, is not just the human, but we want to get the pets and the plants. So I've got on the table here also our fertilizer, our plant fertilizer, which essentially is the powder. It's the green powder with the extract, which is made from the leaves. And so everything of the moringa tree can be used for specific purposes. And I actually I ate one of these. It's pure powder. It is strong, and it smells like going into a feed store. You know, it smells good, but it's also something with the processing, maybe the water. It just doesn't smell like a bowl of moringa powder. You know, it just smells a little bit different. And so, you know, just kind of, you know, describing some of the things that I'm noticing with the pellets, as it's something that's new for me. I've really just making pellets for the last couple weeks and learning how to talk about it. But it looks really good in this package. I got a half a pound here, and we can even talk about pricing, because I think that's going to be the biggest factor in all of this, is finding that sweet spot with pricing. Because the guy that called me with 1,000 heads of cow in Tennessee said that he gets about $1,700 a head after, say, like 60 days, right? So he's in the business of producing babies of baby cows. So this pellet size would be actually perfect for him. If his business was feeding full-grown cows, he would want, say, like the 9mm or the 10mm disc, which can be replaced inside of here, the disc that's in there. There's a hole, right? There's a 9mm hole that goes through there. But because I'm on the phone with him and I chose the middle disc, the 5mm, I wanted to be able to go to kind of both ends a little bit, right? So 1mm, 2mm, that's going to be for the fish and the birds. The 5mm, like this, is opening us up to dogs and chickens and cats and all of those medium bunnies, ferrets, all of these medium-sized animals. That's kind of like the 5mm. But then you can switch this machine out for 2mm disc or a 5mm disc or a 10mm disc to have the different sizes. So for feeding like large cows and horses, they might need more of like the 10 or the 12 even. But I really wanted to just start with that nice medium size, and you guys can see really just how nice it is and how it would even be really good as a dog food, a perfect little supplement of a dog food. So what we did was we actually weighed out how much would go in a pound of dog food. So you really just want 5% of your dog food to be in the bowl, right, with the moringa. And so if you're feeding your dog 1 pound of food, you're really just giving them about 23 grams of supplement. So 23 grams out of 456 grams. And so we just kind of have to learn how to talk about that with somebody who's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on their animal feed. Exactly. It's just a scoop per pound. And so when I was talking to the guy, it's having to explain that it might be a little bit more cost up front, right? Because he's, you know, I think we kind of wrote it down on paper where if he's spending $100,000 on food, but see, he might be spending $50,000 on supplements and shots and hormones and all of those other things, right? But if he was to spend $20,000 more on his food, he could spend $30,000 less on those things. So I'm having to psychologically say, yeah, you're going to spend, instead of $100,000, you're going to spend $120,000 at the end of the year. Well, why? What? but we're taking it out of this chart and we're putting it into this chart. So that way you don't need this chart, or this category of shots and vet bills and all the things. But also I told him that he's got the cattle and he's doing 60 to 90 days. Well, what if I could get you to 45? Because the extra protein and the speed in which it's going to increase the size of your animals. We all know that moringa has so many vitamins and minerals that it's advised and recommended by many doctors around the world to feed moringa to newborns and babies and humans. It's the same thing with the animals, and it's the same thing fish, but also with the plants. And that's why we're connecting it all together here with our lineup of people, pets, and plants, and having a really good tea and powder and loose leaf for the people, and then for the pets having a really nice pellet, different sizes, and then for the plants having a really, really nice scientifically proven extract made from the leaves that helps to improve and increase the yields of all fruits and vegetables up to 40% more in a shorter amount of time. That's the power of moringa that we're talking about here. So you guys have the ability to choose what you want. What lane do you want to go in? But like I was mentioning, is you could start in the people, but then all your byproducts go into the pets and the plants. And so what we can do is we can put the sticks and the stems, because even we've been talking about like, what do you do with the sticks and the stems? And I'm like, well, now that I have the pellet machine, I could dry the sticks and the stems and then just stick those in here. So then we have a green pellet, and then we kind of have like what we call like a second cut, or just it's not necessarily cheaper. It's actually even better for the animals. We have different guts. They need that extra fiber. They love that. So really when the animals love it, they're not really loving the leaves. They're actually loving the sticks. That's what they really love. And so we're going to be putting the sticks and the stems more so in here. And even some of the farmers in our group have suggested just putting it in wet. If I'm having to take the dry powder and add water, why not just take it from the tree into the pellet machine straight?
10% moisture.
But that's what it is. It's that little definition of how much moisture.
20%.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Because if you look on any of the videos of pellet machines online, they all have the moisture reader with it. So when it's coming out of the machine, they're like having the moisture reader. Okay, we're good. It's only at 10%. And I think that's why putting the powder in with water is having the controllable of the water. The pressure of what we've done in this machine and pressed it, it's also creating a chemical reaction to where it's even off-gassing, right? And our next product, or the next thing that we're going to be developing together, is a home biogas kit, where essentially you're putting your fresh moringa greens into the home biogas kit, and it helps to produce gas for your stove and energy for your house. And what's really amazing is that there have been lots of studies and tests done that moringa produces more gas per pound than any other plant. 4 pounds of cubic feet of gas for every 1 pound of wet slurry.
Better than corn.
Better.
It's burning.
It's massive difference in energy and methane gas that comes from it. I mean, we're talking comparable to animal dung, already on the level with the creation of gas, which is pretty amazing considering animals take thousands of gallons, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water when moringa is drought tolerant. And so we could be producing gas in places that are experiencing drier conditions. Robin's just like, oh my gosh, it's just so much. What do I do? What do I pick? And so you just kind of start small. We've got some members here that are tinkering and looking at things, looking at the loose leaf, looking at the tea. Some members are already making capsules and working their way through and having powder. Now some of the next steps could be, getting some of these pieces of equipment and scaling up and possibly buying in to be able to use that USDA powder for something. I don't use the USDA powder other than plants and pets because I want to have the local USA powder for the people, for the fresh. Just because, we're bougie like that. We want to have, our own thing, but for the pets and the animals, we can get them the scraps, right? We can give them the scraps from the table. It's kind of like that. But at the same time, I'm getting in the industry and I'm seeing that there's even more regulations, even with animals. It's nuts. So just keeping things clean and safe is really important. That's why whatever it is, people, pets, plants, it's all got to be metal. It's all got to be metal surfaces. It's got to be clean. You got to wear gloves all times. I'm tying up and putting masks on, tying up my hair in all these situations. So that way I'm not mixing around. You can see that we've got the place clean, separated. We're trying to keep things in different rooms and different sections, and actually just making sure that this space is just for work. It's not really for living. We're turning this into a full store operation. So that way it is more designated as that. And then as we build more things and have more cabins and more sheds, when people want to come and stay and have fun and we have these events, it's not stay in the store, it's stay out and about. We're going to be building more outhouses and more infrastructure outside. So where this is really just designated as store and teaching and classroom as a clean space. Some of the members that were here last year can see the difference. We've been cleaning up and cleaning out and making sure that we're getting this place spick and span. And thanks to the members raising the capital, starting to potentially say, what? You wanted to get a ton? Okay, might be able to do that. That's $44,000 order versus a $4 order, or a $5 order with the baggies, right? So it's like, okay, so how do we talk about this and close that deal? I'm on there like I've never closed a deal larger than $1,000. How do I get a $44,000 sale? Psychologically, knowing the facts, being confident, and being able to help solve that person's problem. The problem is that you're spending too much on your animals, on the back end. Some of them are even not even making it. Well, maybe because you're not feeding the parents well either. So get the parents the good stuff as well. Then those babies will come out already. Instead of 60, 90, you're hitting 45, 50 and still getting 17, and they're still getting to the weight. And if anything, they're leaner and the meat's a lot nicer. That's what I've noticed, and I've heard from a lot of our cattle growers who are putting Moringa in it. The marbling of the meat is actually a lot desirable. When you go to a restaurant, you order a Kobe steak, they branded that Kobe steak. They bring it out to you. You can see the marbling. Okay, that's good. I'll spend the money on the Kobe steak, right? The same thing with the Moringa. The marbling is what's helping to increase the price for cattle growers. Yeah. So if they don't bring out your steak, your Kobe steak, before you've ordered it, it's not real. They have to bring it out beforehand because it's the marbling, and they probably feed it Moringa. I'm just going to say they did. Yeah. Anything else before we close up? We only have really one more session. I just really wanted to get the pellets in there. Everybody's good here? Yeah? How much sugar? How much sugar? What were we talking about before? Sugar. Maybe she was. Yeah, I don't think there's cellulose or sucralose or anything like.
You mean carbohydrates?
Carbs. Maybe carbs.
Carbs are your fat.
Right. So per 100 grams. Oh, that's the pods. Leaf carbs, 8 grams. It's actually. It's got some carbs. It's got some carbs. but they're going to be getting their fats and their carbs and their processed meats from the cheap food that they're buying.
Everybody knows what you eat.
Is what
you eat good stuff.
That's right.
You eat good protein. You eat good stuff. You're going to be healthier. The animal's health, everything grows faster.
Yep. Yeah, I was just thinking about, you know, the pricing that this guy said, because just kind of getting into the pricing, right? Because like right now, and it's all negotiable, right? Because if we're not getting any orders at this price, like I said, the pricing is always changing. It's fluctuating. Testing the market. So right now we're at $50 for 1 pound, right? So that means that this half pound would be 30, right? Because it's a little bit more for a smaller amount, right? So if I'm pricing this at $50 for the pound, then this isn't $25. This is 30. You see that? So that way they're more incentivized to get the pound. So the 1 pound, the smaller amount is more per ounce. And as you go up, we have another option of, say, 500 pounds. And then that goes to, say, $40 a pound. You know, so right now I'm basing all of the prices off of the 1 pound, because this is where the market is really going to sit. I don't want to price the pound too low and then I'm already not making any margins on the ton. I've still got to make sure that I keep the margins on the ton. So I'm looking at the totality of the cost of a ton, which is kind of like my low, versus the pound, or even the half pound, which is going to be the most price per pound, right? So $30 for the half, $50 for the 1, and then it goes down to, like, say, $40 a pound for 500 pounds. Then it goes to like 35 pounds, $35 for 1,000 pounds. Then we're even bringing it down. I think we're getting it all the way down even to, I think, $20 a pound for a ton. And even that right there, talking to the guy that buys hundreds of thousands of dollars, he's like, you're out of your mind. I buy my food for $7 a pound. I'm like, dude, that's your 100%. This is your 5%. See the difference? So he's spending $7 a pound on his 100 when this is $20 a pound for just a sliver. So we've got to somehow be able to talk about that.
If you have a 10-pound dog and you need 4 bags of that a year, it's $200 for your 10-pound dog to have a supplement every day of its life for 365 days.
Right.
You know, so you got your small dog and you're giving it regular food, but you want to give it some extra something.
Yep.
It's going to cost about $200 a year to give your dog a nice supplement.
Yeah, and that dog
equates out to $20 a month. And guess what? If that dog's healthier, you're not having to. You know,
that's right.
It's
good.
Skinnier.
It's not itching. It doesn't have as much bugs on it or fleas or scratch.
It's just healthier.
It's healthier. It's not getting the bulbs on it.
It's just healthier if it has anything and all that.
Yeah, the teeth, and actually longevity. You know, the dogs. We want the dogs and the cats here as long as we can. We have someone that used just the regular powder, kept their dog alive for years. Their dog was really, really sick, and that dog ended up blowing them out of the water for years because they just kept feeding it Moringa. They're like, yeah, this dog was on its deathbed already, but it's on its way back because we just keep feeding it Moringa. So it keeps the dogs and the animals healthier and alive. So it might be a little bit more on the front end supplementing, but we've got to be able to talk about how they're going to be saving on vet bills, medical bills, and all the other bills on the back end. It's the same thing when we shop for our food. We could choose to just eat the sugar, starchy foods, and then we're going to be sick and crunchety, or we're going to eat whole, living, dark, melanated, carbon-rich foods, dark, green foods, you know, living foods, and we get to have a better quality of life. It's more expensive. That's why they made organic and generic. So that way you can differentiate between that system. Were there any other questions?
I was just going to comment. when the comparison of when you're talking to a rancher and he's thinking it's feed, and you're calling it animal feed, maybe that's the disconnect. It needs to be called animal vitamin or animal supplement instead of feed, because he's thinking it's like 100% going to be feed.
Yeah.
But you're
Dang.
it's only a vitamin.
Put me back to work. I got to make new labels. But it's so right. You're so right.
Yeah.
What do they call it at the pet store? Like an add-in?
Wow.
Yeah.
Topper.
Yeah.
Topper.
Yes.
Yeah.
This needs to be
So,
supplement.
So like if you're feeding your cow 10 pounds a day, instead you're going to feed them 9 pounds and give them 1 pound of this or
Yes.
whatever,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. And I even have on here essential vitamins and trace minerals. So it needs to be Moringa animal supplement.
Or vitamin.
Because if you're also a major rancher, you know, you're not, I mean, realistically, you're not just going to switch your stock out to just Moringa.
Oh, you
You're
can't.
just
No,
not
no, no,
gonna
no,
do it
no, no, no.
cost effective or anything.
No,
So
you don't want this to be 100.
So my mind's been going, I couldn't agree with you more, is how do you get around that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get around that?
The words.
I talked to an alpaca farmer, or a buffalo farmer, right? I said, how much do you spend a month on grain?
Right, because you're kind of in this with me. You're trying to figure this out and how to talk to them.
And I don't want to make them, but I want to give someone the order for it.
Let's get it.
But
Get you a ton order.
They said they at a buffalo farm they spend an average just on grain, $10,000 to $16,000 a month on grain. That doesn't include hay or anything else.
Right.
But roughly about that much a
Yeah,
month.
that's 100,000
So
a
if
year.
you're adding a supplement into that, then
Yep.
you take that percentage of what they're doing a month, and then okay, well, I want to cut into your 10 grand a month, and I want 5% of that 10 grand.
Okay.
Like it's a supplement. You're still gonna get major orders.
Oh,
but
you mean your commission, the structure.
No,
No.
I'm just saying like it's just a out loud thought process. But
Absolutely.
if you're tapping into their $10,000 a month in just grain, and they can supplement and give you $3,000 for this supplement to add and keep it at 10, they're spending $7,000 on grain and $3,000.
Exactly. Like we could get it to the point where they're not spending more, they're just spending less on that food. So they're getting just a little bit less, 5% less.
But when their chickens start giving more eggs, and when
Exactly.
their fur is more beautiful,
Exactly.
the alpaca fur is
Exactly.
more
Their
beautiful,
goats are producing
you know,
twice to 3 times more milk. The
exactly.
eggs are almost twice as big.
Then guess what? That word of mouth is going to get out.
I can't
So,
say
like,
twice as big. I have to say 5 to
Yeah.
10% bigger. You know, stuff like that. I get exaggeration like that. Business has messed me up a little bit. It's exaggerated.
But, yeah, and also this is so new to you. You don't have any tests or
We do. There are.
anything to back up what you're saying?
We have to find it. It's online.
Okay.
It definitely is. It's been used, and there is a lot of research. It has been a supplement for animals for a long time. We're just now coming into it, and I'm being able to talk about it for the first time.
Create like a manual extension. Like this is the animal
That's right.
aspect of this.
Yes.
Have it a miniature book, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just an addition.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, this book here is actually going to be broken down into about 10 sections. But even just a quick little simple, we need that as a team to put in a little one-pager or just like a little mini book for just our farmers. We need to actually have a small little booklet that we could go into farms or feed stores to give them with a little sample. Be like, hey, take this with the label on the back that says crude protein, calcium, the vitamins and minerals. I haven't made the back label yet because we just went into the store the other day. I took a picture of that. I was like, that's the perfect label. You know, sometimes you just have to see it. And yeah, we're just blown away at all the fake processed stuff. But that's how like we got salt on the table, because that was a byproduct of petroleum. The petroleum industry creates salts. So now it's like, what do we do with all these salts? Oh, let's put it on the table. The salt that's on our tables at the restaurant is not actually NaCl. That's from the earth. It's NaCl that's chemically combined through the process and the byproduct of making petroleum, which is why that salt on the table raises your blood pressure. But the sea salt, the real salt, especially if you find one that's been tested, that's not been mined by dynamite, because that has heavy metals in it. But if you can get a natural salt that's mined, that's not mined or dynamite and free, maybe even just from the ocean, then it'll be more pure. So there's sea salts now and salts that are being tested to make sure that they're heavy metal tested because of the dynamite. It's nuts. Well, I've had a really great time talking about animal pellets. I'm really excited to get into this business because it's huge. One order for $44,000, sign me up. And it's going to help thousands of animals, and it's going to feed hundreds of thousands of people with the good stuff. Better nutrition.
Save the earth.
That's all I wanted to do. That's what I had to find that purpose. And I feel really good about the direction that we're going, because even with the fertilizer aspect, it's like, we all know the problem with the soil. You know, the soil has been depleted so much that today you have to eat 5 oranges. 8 oranges. You heard that, right? 8 oranges are the same amount as 1 orange from 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It's because of the soil.
But and you also have access to the farms that make their own pellets and throw everything in. So you're not selling them pellets, you're selling them powder. Like you're selling
Yes,
them
if
seed
they're
cake.
Yes.
Let them do
If
it.
you're
You
making
wanna
your
cut
own
your
pellets,
costs, do
cut
it
your cost.
yourself.
Make your
Add it
pellets.
in.
And I'll sell you the crude. That's another thing that we didn't talk about. We talked about the powder and the sticks, but then we've got the byproduct of the making the oil. So we have the crude protein from the cake, the seed cake. Oh, they eat that up. I throw that out to Mr. Duck. He's going nuts. Yeah, they love it. The goats, anytime goats see the fresh greens, they're going nuts. But I've had a great time, even just the experience of getting into this agriculture space is like, yeah, what else is there? I know there's tech. Yeah, there's stocks and stuff, but it's like, man, we're in the food industry, like agriculture industry. I love it. It makes me feel like I'm really doing something. It's one of the biggest industries in the world. You know, there's medical industry and all the other industries, but agriculture and food is really where I think the heart of our society and even family matters, and everything kind of goes back to, you know, because when you have a farming family, you've got a family that's a unit that's working together, and it's not being divided and separated and going out of the home. You know, as much as it's nice to go out and travel and vacay, but at the end of the day, you know, you've got to keep that family unit, and farming really helps to keep that together. So I'm really, really happy to be one of the 1%.
Yeah, and
I agree.
job security too. Like, you know, if times get tough, people are still feeding their animals, still taking care of their animals. So
That's what I thought too. Tough times, longevity. One of the longest businesses that's still in operation today is a tea company that's in Tibet. They're over 1,000 years old, and they're still operating in the same building. You know, 1,000-year-old tea company at the top of a mountain in Tibet. I typed in, what's the longest running business? I mean, we all know about the Tea Party. We know what happened. About the whole entire country was, when the start of the war, all that stuff was over tea. And the taxation over tea. It's nuts. I was like, man, tea it's pretty wild. It's hundreds of billions of dollars a year industry all over the world buying tea leaves, and it's the easiest thing to make. It's the easiest barrier of entry into this business is getting the dry room. We've got all the members here that are literally focused on getting their dry rooms going because they're realizing that's really the bottleneck. I can't go from tree to package without this one room. This one room pulls everything into the physical, into a package, into the real. Because I can't do anything without. That was the first thing I did. Built a greenhouse, built a dry room when I moved in here. And I was like, okay, we're good. I can dry. So then I could go out across the neighborhood, and I can at least start drying other people's stuff, which is what members are starting to do now, is bring in, they get their dry room set up while their trees are growing, they can harvest other trees. And now, like for me, 3 years in this place, I didn't have to go to a single location pretty much. I did it for one of the members because he's right down the street and he had 400 big trees and it was just right there. But I told him, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And he said, I know. And so he just built a metal building on his property. He's like, I'm good now, no worries. We're going to start drying. He just built a 3,000 square foot metal building in 2 days. Yeah, it took him 2-3 weeks for the foundation, but then once the foundation was done and dried and cured and he had all his pipes in there, boom, the building was up in 2 days. So he's ready to rock.
It's amazing what you can do when you have the finances to do it, right?
Yes, and also on an ag, because there's no code to that. And we were talking a little bit about how our country is a little bit tied up with rules, regulations, codes, and laws, and that restriction is what's causing a lot of the economic turmoil. But if we, like for him, he's on an ag land, so he has a little bit more leniency with the time it takes to put things up, actually, and with the code and the permitting, because he's on ag. This is actually still residential. I can't do much here as far as infrastructure. But he can have as many buildings as he wants because he's on ag land. So he could have a bunch of metal buildings, no problem. Here, I can't have another building here. On this 2.5, the code here in this residential spot is one building with one bathroom every 2.5 acres. Now there can be, you can see other supplemental buildings, but they're classified as sheds and they're not occupiable like for a long period of time.
It'd be cool if you could pay somebody to act almost like Jehovah's Witness and go door to door within like 100-mile radius or just a certain mile radius of this location.
Yeah, just a salesperson. Yeah, just hitting it.
And like get people just recruit for membership only.
Oh yeah.
Become a member and support this farm down the road.
That's really smart.
A local farm support. It's $25 a month to support this local farm.
And they're right down the road. And just
Brilliant. You know what?
this area up.
Just this area, like, and you know what? I'm glad that you said that because just the other day I finally pulled around the corner out there, and they have a corner right there where they put like stuff where people always congregate on that little corner out there, where they just put beds and you saw maybe some china that was sitting out there, or they got cabinets, or somebody will drop stuff off, and before you know it, it's gone. Well, I'm thinking of making sure that I put a Moringa sign there. I want to ask if I could put a Moringa sign on that corner, and then also do what you're saying is,
Churches are good hubs.
yeah, we've got a couple churches just right down this little corner right here, and actually, you're absolutely right. I need to be more integrated with the community. Every farm should, and that's actually the invisible structure that's most important within the permaculture concepts, is the invisible structure.
I volunteer like half a day every day.
All right, hey, Ron, Don, and all the others here, we're going to go ahead and be back in about 20 minutes or so to close up the day. We've had a great time, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. We're going to come back and talk labels, products. We're going to finish everything up. Anything else that's not really known or certain, or you're still stuck on what's next, we're going to help you get there, and we'll make it more clear. So we'll see you in just a few minutes.